My next guest I had the privilege to sit down with is a Black Jamaican American queer transgender cowboy poet. And so he is a writer, he is a mental health therapist. And one of the things that we highlight in this episode is his writing and his poetry. And he talks a lot about how he fell in love with writing. And so you get some really good gems within this episode because he has two books, one that was just released and one that is coming out soon. And so he read a poem from each book, one poem that I chose and then a poem that he chose. This is really a great episode. He gives a lot of great things about who he is as a person and how his life has influenced his career and his writing. I hope that you enjoy.
Dem Bois, Dem Bois, amplifying, transmitting, color voices, yeah, we here making noise, making noise, visibility equals possibility, you know we them boys, them boys, amplifying,
Welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his. My next guest is a Black Jamaican American queer transgender cowboy poet who moonlights as a mental health therapist. He has a lot of recognition, y'all, and a winner of many awards for his writing. He also supports emerging and established writers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Yes, I'm so glad that you are here. I've been wanting to get you on this show for a while now. And so you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for folks, your name and pronouns?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Grayson Thompson. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Beautiful. And so, Grayson, where are you located?
I'm located in Santa Rosa, California. It's about an hour north of San Francisco.
And are you from Santa Rosa? Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Massachusetts. I grew up in a city outside of Cambridge, and I was raised for the second half of my life in Florida. So I consider myself a bi-coastal type person. I grew up between both those places my whole childhood.
I got you. So what took you to Santa Rosa?
A job. I just finished therapy school and I was looking for a job, and my partner was also looking for a new job, and an opportunity opened up out here, and it's more affordable than the Bay, at least when I chose to move here. Um, so wanted to be in a place where I can save some more money and still have access to everything that's great about Northern California: nature, being in the Bay, access to water and the coast. So I made the leap.
Beautiful. Well, welcome to California. We're not that far away from each other. Excuse me, probably about an hour drive with traffic, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
welcome. So the name Grayson, how did that name choose you?
Wow, I was talking about this last night because I wondered if you were going to ask this question. Uh, so Grayson, my best friend, one of my best friends, their name is Gabby Fluke Mogul. They're a renowned international violinist. And we've been friends since I was like 14. I'm now 32. And we were talking in a Facebook messenger box. And I was like, all right, I need a name. I'm about to move to California. And I moved to California when I was 22. So I was like, I can't go start this new life without a name. So we were brainstorming names, and I really wanted to center on grace. Like, I think a lot about grace, and I try to move with grace, and I try to ask for forgiveness and mean it. And I wanted to be a child of grace. And but I wanted a more masculine version of that. And I thought about, if my mom struggles with Grayson because my mom has a speech impediment, what would be a short way to get to grace? And Grayson came from that, and living between black and white, which I think the trans identity is a part of. And the second reason why I chose this name is my middle name is Liam, and I have a friend named William. He goes by Billy or Liam. And at the time of choosing my name, he was battling cancer. And thankfully, he's alive and he's in many years of remission. But I wanted my middle name to emulate a person and a masculinity I really aspired to be like. So I chose his name as my middle name. And Grayson Liam Thompson, also coincidentally enough, is a white passing name. And as a black person in the South trying to find work, it was not a good look. My birth name was giving me away as a black person. It was like hardcore giving me away. Like there was no way guessing that I wasn't Black. And I had the unfortunate reality of applying to the same jobs with different names and getting callbacks for those jobs because my name reads as white. And it's something I've noticed in my professional career, unfortunately, that people are shocked when they see a Black man show up with the name that I have. So in a way, it's given me the privilege of like job security.
I want to ask you, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7", 5'8".
5'7", 5'8". So then coming in as Grayson Liam and then being taller, right? And then, so you
Mm-hmm.
having this presence that comes with you. So how does that make you feel though, that somebody who didn't take you seriously with your name that was given Black, and then to a name that you chose that is white passing? Like, how does that make you feeling? And with this people calling you back and like, okay, you just choosing me because my name is Grayson.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like it felt at first super violent. Like there was a stingingness all the time. And at one point I thought about changing my name again. Like I think in the pandemic I was thinking about changing my name again. But as those of us who have changed our names, it's like work and money. I didn't want to do it. So for me, like at first it felt really violent, really invalidating. It felt like um just wanting a Black person there because once they saw I was Black, like I just sensed that diversity token kind of vibe going. Um, and there is a painfulness about knowing by name only. Like if you don't look me up on LinkedIn or see my social media or whatever, like knowing that people are assuming I'm white feels violent. Just the assumption of race. Um, so yeah, there's a violentness to it, and now that I'm so far deep into it being my name, um, it's hard to imagine it not as my name, I guess, and like owning that, this is still me, even though it comes with this like racialized baggage. Um, and some weird security because there aren't a lot of Black Graysons in the world. So it helps me also feel anonymous because if you're trying to find a Grayson Thompson, it's usually like a white quarterback from like Texas or something. So I feel some level of like, I don't stand out. Whereas my birth name at my middle school, there were 7 other people with my birth name. So there were like a mob of us, 8 of us, but I was the only one that was like boy.
I love your description of it being violent, but I want to say how of a shame it is that we have to be worried about our names, whether it's white passing or not, right? You should be able, I'm just
Mhm.
going to pick a name what people typically think is a Black center name. So if your name is Shaniqua, why can't you come into a place and get a job for who you are and your skills and your education, as opposed to if your name was Marie or Mary, right? It's like, to me, that's it doesn't feel right, but obviously that's the world that we live in. And it's sad, by the
Mhm.
way, that folks have to worry about what their names are. I know a person that works with trans women, that they have workshops on how to, when they get ready to change their names, of finding names that will get them a job. And I'm like, that's just so ridiculous that there has
Yeah.
to be a system created to get you a job just because you can't choose a name that you want. You have to choose a name that's safe, right? How
Mhm.
how just how rough is that, right? And so I don't like that at all. And so I'm sorry that you had to experience that in a way, right? But it's cool that you are Grayson. I love that name actually. I know a Grayson, a little Black boy that's named Grayson, but he's actually 3, so that don't really. I mean, right? It's a
Yeah, it was
huge.
the top 5 baby names for like 7 years.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love the name. And so I want to ask you to kind of like briefly tell us a moment when you began to question your gender identity.
When I was 5 years old in kindergarten, we would play house, and I always wanted to be the dad. I always wanted to be the dad, and that's like my earliest memory of recognizing that I was different from other girls or not girl. That's how I described it. Knowing I was not a girl, is just always wanting to be the dad when people played house.
When you experienced that, did you go home and tell somebody about it?
I told my mom that I was a lesbian when I was young. Because I thought, in my cultural context, if you're a girl who doesn't quite think they're a girl, you're a lesbian. Because that's how, like, I didn't know trans people were a thing. I just knew that they were like lesbians and gay men. So I thought my transness meant I was actually a lesbian.
How did your mom take you coming home and saying that, "Hey, mom, I'm a lesbian"?
My mom did not take it well. I was also 8 or 9. I'm a first generation American. My family's from Jamaica, and I come from a beautiful, strong, colorful culture that I love. And it comes with its own baggage. So my mom didn't respond well and took many years to change who she was as a parent.
I remember my first moment. I was probably around the same age as you were, and I had this little girl in class, and I guess I want to say we liked each other. I don't know. We used to hold hands, and the same thing, right? You play house. I was the daddy or the male figure in the game, and then I went home one day, and my mom was watching Donahue. I'm gonna date myself a bit. I don't know if you remember Donahue. You
I
do?
do.
Okay. And they had lesbians and gay men on there. And I just sat there watching and so then I asked my mom, I was like, well, what's a lesbian? So she told me what it was. I was like, okay, well, what's gay? Okay, she told me what it was. I said, I think I'm a lesbian too. I got the worst whooping I ever received in my life. And
Hmm.
she told me, don't ever, you're not a lesbian, and I don't want to ever hear you say that again. And so that was like my first experience with it. It was like, okay, so I'm gonna just suppress this. I'm not gonna ever say this again, right? And so it's kind of like having that similar experience with like
Yeah.
first coming out, right? So how was you and your mother's relationship now?
Um, Much better. Like I think, and I still think this, like I think my mom always wanted a daughter. She got three. Like I was the oldest. So she ended up with three, but she always wanted that like girl best friend who's like your kid type thing. My youngest sister fulfilled that dream. So I don't got that pressure. But my mom and I like really, I think my mom really understands me. Like she understands my temperament. She understands like my humor. She knows the things that make me mad. And I think over the years as she got older, my mother's now, she was born in 69. So we're in 2015. She's like 54, 55. And it took many years for her to realize like those things are still all the same thing. They're all still the same thing in a different package.
What do you think was the shift for her?
My mom will describe me as I'm her child who will always tell the truth, even if people don't like to hear it. And I remember when I told her, like, hey, I'm going to start hormones. I had to explain to her what they like. My mom's a CNA, but like, she didn't know anything about trans healthcare until recently. She started taking classes on it to become a community health worker. So she learned more about it. But at the time, she was like, I don't know what this is. And she said, she basically said she can't control me anymore. And there was this moment, I think, for her where she realized, like, I am someone who will do what I have to do to survive, which is a skill that she has. And I think she realized she was like trying to control my survival and this thing that I need. And the more she would try to control it, the further I would leave because I literally moved 3,000 miles away from my family. So I think she had this moment of if I keep holding on to these little things, there'll be nothing left to hold on to.
Since your transition and this is a question I've never actually asked anyone, but since your transition, have you had a moment where your mother told you that she loved you?
Yeah, my mom told me she loved me yesterday.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Actually, she tells me she loves me every time she hangs up the phone.
Wow. Is that something that's new, or was that a habit that she's always had?
I think we had a really hard time when I was in high school, and I don't think we said it that often, and I don't remember hearing it that often. Um, in high school, I ended up moving out. Actually, I moved out to live with a different family, my best friend's family. who I ended up staying with for the rest of my high school career. So that even drew a further separation between us. And my queerness was some of the reasons I had to make that decision. So there was a point in time where I don't remember hearing it at all. So hearing it now is nice. And I know she means it. And she's not just like, I think there are some parents who just say it because they know it's the thing a parent should say. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It does. And so when you say it, do you say it back?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a moment, and I'm gonna get to why I'm asking you this, but do you have a moment when you never said it, or you maybe never felt it, or are you saying it because you were yearning for it, and now she's saying it, so you're like, okay, I'm gonna say it back?
I have told my mother I loved her every time, even when she didn't understand me, or even when she was mad at me, because I mean it. I think my mom is a strong miracle of a person. Like, just on the immigrant level, couldn't be me. Like, I couldn't come to this country, raise 4 kids by myself. I couldn't do it. And I think for a long time I wanted to hear it back and hear that it means like me, like this, with like a beard and like male. So I think for a long time she would say it, but I could tell it was like to this girl version of me. But I always said it because I do love her, and I love her. I say it in one of my poems. I love her in fluent complication. I'm fluent in complication when it comes to my mother, but I love her in that like fluent language.
I love that. I'm asking you because my mom didn't, for many, many years, didn't tell me, and for sure didn't say it after my transition. But I think I mentioned this before on the show, but my mom gave me this little, I still have it to this day. I probably was like maybe 13 or so, this little teddy bear, probably about 6 inches, but it's an angel, and you squeeze it and it says, I love you. When she gave me that, because I never remembered her telling me, I cried like a fucking baby. And even now, and it still has the batteries, I can still squeeze it and it'll still tell me 20 years later, right, that it loves me. And so that's something, it made me feel some type of way, but I also was sad because I didn't really feel it back. Like I really legit, because of all the intersectionalities of who I was growing up, I knew I had that sense of who I was, just like you said, at a young age. And I knew that my mother was never going to agree with who I was and who I was growing up to be. And so I just never felt that love back. She was rough. She was verbally abusive, physically abusive. And so to me, I always saw my friends and their parents' relationships. And I was like, damn, that's what a parent's supposed to be like. Why do I get this one? Right. And of course, right. And you as a therapist, you know that even, folks come with their baggage, and sometimes people don't work on their shit, and they have kids, and all that shit spills out onto their children. Right. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I actually realized I love my mother. And I think in my 30s, I started to transition in my early 30s, mid 30s. And so when I became comfortable with myself, then I was able to pour out love outward. And I saw things differently. And now I tell my mother I love her because I do. Now I do. I understand all of the things that she went through because of my own mental health journey as well, right? My own therapy and working through my own shit, that I'm able to look back and like, okay, my mom, that was just her because she went through a lot of shit, right? And just being able to say now in a full-hearted way, like, yeah, I love that lady. She all right. I love her, right? And then to be able to receive that back. So that's why I asked you that question.
That's really powerful that you say that, because my partner in our first year together for Christmas got me a replica of the little bear my mom got me when I was a little kid. And I bursted into tears because I think about that time before telling my mom this information about me, and like the parent she was, and the parent she was after I told her all this information about me until into my 20s. And I have the bear, and I had a bear too. And finding that replica was pretty like a moment for me of like this inner child person. I just started crying because I just like think about my mom getting me that same bear that I held onto and then ended up losing.
Hey, this is Joel Simu, production assistant for Dem Bois Podcast. Here at Dem Bois, we are committed to amplifying the voices of trans men of color. We need your support to continue this important work. Your contributions make it possible for us to cover production costs, provide honorariums to our guests, and keep sharing these powerful transition stories. Ready to support? Click the donation link in our description or head over to our website at dembois.org. And remember, all donations are tax deductible. Through sharing, connecting, and giving, you're doing more than supporting a podcast. You're helping build a movement. Until next time, stay strong, stay visible, and keep telling your story.
Did your partner know you had that bear and went searching for it, or was it just a coincidence?
She knew, like, she asked me a question once, something about my childhood, and I was like, and I wrote about it in one of the poems. That's probably it. She read one of these poems, and I had this bear that it had a, eyeball falling out, needing a stitch or two. Like, it was like used. And I had these action figures and I had this family of toys under my pillow. And I grew up like really low income. I grew up in like a poorly taken care of building with like rats and mice and like roaches. I grew up super poor and super needing resource. And I had this army of toys under my pillow because I would like talk to them at night because I didn't really have friends because I was a weird Black kid in the middle of white Massachusetts who was gender strange. And I would talk to this bear and these toys, and like those were like, I guess, what people would pray to. Like those were the people I talked to. So she read this poem and I told her this story about the toys, and I guess she was trying to find this bear. And then she gave me the bear, and I was just like crying because I didn't think I'd see this similar bear again.
Wow, that's a testament to love and care for you too, right? Of a partner willing to listen to you in your writing and listen to you verbally, and go out and find something that means something to you where you can receive it and be like, damn, this was it, right? That it brings you to tears. I'm so glad she found it. I love that story. Like, I'm so glad that she found it. And so are you taking care of this one now to make sure that it's put up and eyeballs not falling out and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm like, it sits by my nightstand and he's chilling. I hope to give it to my niece next time I see her when I go home. So she has something that's like intergenerational, like passed down. And she's at a good age to give a bear. Like she's 10. I'm like, that's a good age. You're kind of older. Keep track of stuff more.
Yeah. Are you going to explain to her what the bear means to you before you pass it on?
Yeah, now that she understands how people are related, because I didn't realize how hard that was for children to understand, like, oh, my dad is related to you. Like, this is what a grandma is. This is what an auntie is. Now that she gets how people are related, because for a long time, she didn't think my mom was my mom because she didn't understand. I don't know. I don't think she thought adults could have adult children for a long time. So now that she understands, like, oh, like grandma gave me something like this, I want you to have this version, I think it'll mean more because she can picture who these people are and how they're connected now.
Beautiful. That's so sweet. Like, just to be able to pass that on. So are you ready to let it go?
Yeah, I think I am. And I think since having a niece, like, I think my niece is one of the reasons I was put on this planet as a trans person. Like, I think I completely understood my gender and transness when my niece was born. Like, I thought I got it because I was pretty in my transition when she was born. Like, she's only 10, so I was already in my journey. But like she was at my undergrad graduation. I have a picture of her as a baby in my arms, and I just think my transness and everything all made sense when she was born. I was like, yeah, I really need to step into my power and who I am because, like, I don't want this person inheriting all this intergenerational shit. And I want them to know at least one person in their immediate family who is unconditionally loving, who is safe, who is like secure in who they are, who's healthy. I just wanted her to have all these things that I didn't have as a child. And I wasn't always sure her parents could give her because of all the stuff they were navigating.
So you want to be a place of refuge.
Hmm.
I love that. Love that a lot. That's beautiful to not really understand your transition until your niece was born. Like, that's beautiful, actually, to just have that awakening in that moment and to live your life. And to be somebody that she can look up to. Be like, now that she gets the
Yeah.
relationships. Beautiful.
And explaining transness to her is a trip. Like it's so funny and interesting, and like the questions she asks about me and about my life and all that stuff is just like really funny.
I love that. I can't wait till you give her the bear. I wish we can come back and be like, okay, what does she say? What does she do?
Yeah.
So I mentioned a little bit earlier. So you are a mental health therapist and you are a writer.
Hmm.
And those are totally different things. I see them. And so how do you maintain that work-life balance between being a therapist and being a writer?
That's a good question. So my therapist practice, my therapy practice is I guess 9 to 5. I don't always work exactly 40 hours a week. And my writing practice is usually on the weekends or at night when people are asleep because I'm a more night owl type person and I like privacy. And so I'm usually writing at night or in the mornings, early in the mornings on the weekends.
Early in the morning to late at night. Like privacy. What, you don't want anybody bothering you, or like you just want to get into your groove? And what is it? What is it
I want
about?
to get into my groove and I don't like being observed. Like I don't like feeling like I'm being watched or feeling like it's like I think about like that Eminem movie. What was it? 8 Mile? Maybe I'm dating myself. 8 Mile, where it's like someone drops a beat and they're like, "Here, do a poem," or "What did you write?" or "Read something," and I'm just like, I don't like that feeling when people know you're creating and then they're waiting for like the output of that because it doesn't feel genuine. Um, where I'd rather create something and like show or share like the final process and product of it because I think it takes a process to get to a final piece to share. And I feel like sharing before I'm completely done processing the thing I'm trying to get out doesn't feel fair to the story I'm trying to tell, doesn't feel fair to the emotion I'm trying to share or the person I'm writing about. If I'm writing a person, you're only getting like a part of the thing before I really like thought it through.
So that means you'll never be like in a poetry workshop.
I am a TA for a poetry workshop. I think when I'm in workshop, when I used to be in workshop, I would write and never share out or rarely share out. Um, but now that I'm a teaching assistant in one, I'm always like, share. Like people should share out because I think it's good practice that I don't do.
So you being a hypocrite telling people to share, but then you never
Yeah.
share.
I'm like, yo, speak your truth, dog. We're us. I'm like, not me.
Hey, but then if everybody else is sharing, then it takes the attention off you, and then time is up, and you ain't got time to share anyway. So that's how
Yeah.
that works. Be the cheerleader so everybody else can step up.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, as a therapist, and how does bringing your gender identity into your work, how is that important to you?
That's a good question. I think like I'm strategic about my gender identity as a therapist. So I'm in private practice at a trans owned practice based out of LA called Pershing Square right now, Pershing Square Therapy. And in that I'm out, right? Like it outs itself by being trans owned. But here in Sonoma County where I live, I don't directly mention I'm trans anywhere because it's a more conservative county. And I've seen queer and trans youth and young people in general who need services or help, but their parents don't want them to be treated by a queer person or a trans person or impacted by, people think that just by knowing us, we can convert people or some nonsense like that. So I'm strategic about where I share because like I want to help people. And, someone asked me, do you tell all your clients you're trans? And I say no, because it's not relevant to their health. Like for some people it is. Like I think for young people who are trans, it's helpful to know, for me, to share with them because it's a possibility model. Like, because I don't know about you, but in my lifetime as a young person, like I grew up in a generation where our elders were dead from HIV AIDS complications and the way our country navigated HIV AIDS. So it was just like a big time gap. And now as an older person, all the elders I know are within 10 years of me, which is kind of crazy to think about. They're within 10, maybe 15 years of me. And that's not really an elder. I don't got nobody that's like 70s, 80s, 90s, right? Because they passed away. So I think about it like that with my trans youth that I work with, or even my queer adults who are just coming into their queerness, because I have some late in life queer adults of like, I'm a possibility model that you can live and thrive and be successful and happy as a queer person or as a trans person. Because I know for me, I'm like, all my elders are within like a high school graduation timeline of me. So, and that's because we've experienced a lot of loss. The first trans person I ever met was in college and she died. She was a Black trans woman and she died within like the same semester that I met her. And then I didn't meet another trans person that I had like a close friendship with until I was like 23.
I've never heard anybody explain it like that before. I guess I never thought about it like that when we talk about trans elders and why there are no trans elders. But I also was laughing because you said within 10 years, 15 years of you, and I'm 10 years older than you. So, but don't call me an elder. I'm not
Yeah.
ready yet.
So someone called me an elder and I'm like, I'm still like trying to figure out what health insurance means. It's like, I don't really know it. But isn't that wild? Like you're only within 10 years older than me. And then I'm thinking like, there's no one else up. There's no one above me.
Yeah, that is wow. So let's us live so other folks, we can be 60, 70 years old and we can be elders to folks that are coming up. Right. And so and I love what you were saying about possibility models, because that's what I say all the time is visibility equals possibility. And so that's why we are here sharing our stories so other folks can hear our stories. And I feel not just for trans identified folks, but other folks who aren't trans identified to know that we exist and we are here and we are living and we are thriving. Right. We're here.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, so if you have a youth client and then you disclose to them that you're trans identified, do you tell them not to tell their parents, or you don't care how it goes from there?
I don't care how it goes from there. Like, so I have in my career so far, I've had young people not tell their parents because they already got their parents clocked. Like they already know what's going to happen. The cool part about like teenagers, especially, is developmentally, they're self-centered. Like that's just how they are. And that doesn't even mean anything negative. That's just observationally, like
Absolutely.
in psychology land, like they're self-centered because their ego is developing. So I've had like queer youth who like forget that I'm trans. I've had that happen before. And it could be because like I'm quote unquote passing. So I think they just forget because I look how I look. But yeah, I've had some people not tell their parents. I've had some people forget. I've had some young people ask me questions. And by young people, you could either be a teenager or a kid or a late in life queer person. I have late in life, like adult queer and trans people who ask me questions about like when I knew, how I knew. At Pershing Square Therapy, we offer pay what you can surgery letters, gender affirming surgery letters for California residents. So I meet people all the time for surgery letters who sometimes I'm the first Black trans man they've ever met in their life. And they are a Black trans man trying to get this surgery letter. So that's been wild. That alone, just doing surgery letters now in this part of my career, and being like the first is kind of being the first to adults still kind of like trips me up. Like being the first to kids makes sense. But when I'm the first to adults, especially when you're also Black, that's the part that I'm like, that is like too many layers. Like I'm your
Yeah.
first trans person and I'm Black and I'm a man. It's too much.
Yeah, that is wild, right? It's like, yeah. I guess too though, right? People don't their vision is tunnel because they're just trying to figure shit out. They're really trying to figure themselves out and they don't have time to look outward anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like so yeah, that is kind of strange, especially as an adult, right? That is strange. I've heard youth say that they didn't know that there were trans elders, which kind of is mind blowing. But we just talked about that, right? Of why, trans elders don't really exist. And so hopefully like that shit will change. And then also with this podcast, it's like, even if we aren't here, our stories live forever, right? On this platform where folks can go back 20, 30, 40 years and say, let me see what Grayson was talking about in 2025, right? And so we're still here and our stories are here and we're creating an ancestral presence to be here, even if when we're not physically here. And so that is also the point of this show.
Hey y'all, Pink Lady here. I am the producer for Dem Bois Podcast, and I am so excited to tell you about my production company, Pink Lady Productions. We collaborate with creatives like you who are driven to share your message by launching your podcast from A to Z and coaching you through the process. To learn more about our services, check out our website at pinkladyprod.com. That's PINKLADYPROD.com.
And so you are a writer. So and you came out last month in June with the chapbook or short collection that was released this year in June, actually. And it's called Sand-Bodied Florida Boy. And so how did you come up with that title?
I have known that this was going to be the title for one of my books for like 2 years. It's 2025. So yeah, like 2 years. And I was talking about this at a reading. My publisher for the chapbook is Foglifter Press, based out of San Francisco. And I'm both a recovering Floridian and I'm proud to be from Florida, because Florida is a state in the South that gets forgotten. And I think that's really important because there are queer people there are trans people there are people building lives there are queer and trans people of color, especially queer and trans Black people, building lives there, choosing to stay there, choosing to invest there, just choosing to build. And Florida is often forgotten or pitied, and I refuse to forget or pity like that story of where I came from. So that was like a big part of my title of like, I want people to know I'm from this like crazy wackadoodle like place, this wild, wild place. And that like in hurricane season, we collect sandbags to brace ourselves from like surges of water. And I would like to think as a young person, I was built by those same sandbags and I was often bracing for a storm. And that book chronicles being a child to graduating from college, from undergrad, so 0 to 22. And it chronicles that boyhood and reimagines that boyhood and investigates being a boy, because I didn't get to be a boy, but maybe the whole time I was a boy and I didn't realize it.
I love that title. And then you also coming out with another book in September of this year. And so it's a full collection, right, of stuff. And so I want to ask you, when did your love for writing begin?
I was a big reader when I was a kid. And when I was like 8, my aunt got me a typewriter. So maybe we're both dating ourselves, because I got a typewriter for Christmas. don't even know if they make
I
typewriters
don't even
anymore.
know. People gonna be on here like a typewriter.
Yeah.
What the hell is
What?
that?
A typewriter? I had a whole typewriter
Ask Google.
for Christmas one year. My aunt got me a typewriter with ink and everything. And we didn't have enough money to replace the ink. So I just used that until the ink ran out. And then I just had this typewriter that I couldn't type on. So I got a typewriter because I'm a big reader, and my mom in Jamaica when she was a child was a writer, but I didn't find that out until I was like 27. Um, so I was always into writing. I was always into reading, and that typewriter like really solidified. Like I don't know. I was like, my family, they're immigrants, so they thought I was going to be a lawyer because they're like, are they going to be a lawyer or a doctor? And I grew up near Harvard, so they were like lawyer. So in my mind, I was writing like legal, whatever like lawyers wrote. I was like typing that stuff out. But I loved reading. It's how I escaped. So I knew I wanted to write in a creative way.
And so we talked about this before we started recording, and I asked you if you would mind reading some of this stuff that you've written
Yeah.
here on the show. And I want to say first before you start, because I got an opportunity. I was blessed by you to get an opportunity to kind of check it out beforehand. And I would like to say about, for folks that's listening, you're going to hear in a second, but like your writing is different, and it has some character to me, right? Character, excuse me, not to me, but it has some character to it, and it kind of like resonated with me, even just like the words that the lexical choices that you made, or the indentation, or like how one word may be on one line, and then you even have in one of your poems how the words are in a staircase form, right? And so there's like one on top of another. It's just like, how do you choose like the words you want to use, or the indentation or things like that? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I think when you indent a line in the white space, I think about the white space as breathing. And the more white space there is, the more opportunity you give someone who's reading it on paper the time to breathe and hear what you came here to say. And if you're performing it on a stage or at a reading, it tells me when to stop talking and when to slow down. And it also allows the opportunity on the page for a line to mean two different things. Whereas if you read it as a sentence without a break in the line, you might read it with one meaning.
How did you come up with this interpretation of what it meant to you? Like, was there any like training, or is this just like stuff that you tried, or like how did you come up with the ways in which you wanted to portray your writing?
That's a good question. So I was privileged enough to go to college. I want to name that. That's like a privilege. I have the student loans to prove it. But I studied creative writing in college. Because I wanted to study something I was excited about. Because at first I was studying something to get me a job, and that didn't feel true. And that gave me a lot of the like technical practice. But I think for most writers, what makes, or in my opinion, I don't know, what makes writing good is when you develop a spiritual practice around it and a spiritual understanding of what it means. So I learned these techniques and these forms and these different types of writing, but when I was in college, I didn't have a spiritual connection to it. Like I was speaking more generally as if I had answers I didn't have. I was talking about life in a way as if like I knew answers I didn't have, and I really needed to speak from like a place of grace and a place of like my own understanding of the world, and not arriving here to tell you the truth or a truth. And I think when we think about all the writers who are white and dead and old, they're always trying to tell us something, but you actually don't know how they feel.
I love how you circle back and brought that word grace back into it, right? And that was what you said, how how the name Grayson chose you was from that name, Grace. And so I really love that. And I'm gonna give you the floor and allow you to share what you would like to read to us.
So I'm going to read from Sand-Bodied Florida Boy, At My Funeral, Instructions for My Eulogy. It's one Sean requested. Open with, there was always enough room for Jack when the Titanic sank. That Rose was a lesson in survival. Tell them I could never get over that, how it taught me to put everybody first. Remind Maggie to turn the lights off when she leaves. Teach my baby sisters they can do hard things, but no one's meant to do hard things forever. All faith starts with a different choice. Remind them being their big brother was my favorite sport. Tell Zach he isn't an apology for whoever he was before, all his parts that felt misplaced, for all the ways he tried to get it right. Tell Mikey I hope that in a Gen Z world where he is so connected that he finds someone to show his nails to. Tell Noah he deserves a year to be witnessed in slow motion, that he is synonymous with my quietest parts. Tell my clients I honestly believe there are more worse ways to live, and it's totally okay to make a joke or two about wanting to die. I'll always laugh, even if it's a little true. Thank Mark and Jackie for choosing me, for showing me that love isn't a lightning strike. No need to stand in a holler of tuning forks to hear it. Just breathing is enough. Tell my aunt that declaring to me, someone who spent decades disappearing, that I didn't know myself became the North Star of my backbone. Thank my godmother for never forgetting to remind me my trans ass is what a God thought of when it created grace. Tell Maggie I wanted something remarkable, and she is what I got. I knew I was in love with her when instead of using a spoon to scoop tomato sauce into a container, she raw dogged it with her fingers, then licked them. And later that night used those same fingers, throwing raw garlic into the compost bin. She held my face, called me home. Tell Wayne. Tell my mom. There was a time the totality of who she was dismembered me. When I felt joy and my life was at its highest hilarity, I'd close my eyes and wonder what she'd think of me in these moments when I forgot everything bad she ever told me about myself. Tell her I believed her when she said she was sorry. Tell my therapist, sometimes everything still hurts. I don't know why, and maybe it will always feel this way, but I know what loving myself is now. It's building a poem, heartbreak by heartbreak. It's in the way I let people feel my soft spots, even when I don't know how to close. Footnote. Here lies my brother Wayne. We don't talk anymore. I try to remember him like this before everything.
Thank you for that, for sharing that. That poem really resonated with me just because of the title. And I wanted to ask you, like, the things that you wrote within that. First, what inspired it? And second, are they true?
Yeah, so what inspired it is because, like most trans young people and trans people, I've thought about dying and I've wanted to die and I've tried to die. And I spent a long time thinking about, okay, say I do die. Like, I'm surprised I made it to 32. Like, with every year, I was like, damn, I can't believe I made it this far. I can't believe I made it this far based on just everything I've been through. And I was like, so what if I do die? Like, I want to leave instructions. I don't want people just running amok doing whatever they're trying to do. And I want people to know what I thought about them. I don't want people to leave like with questions about where they stood with me because that's a value of mine. I always want people to know where I stand on things. So as someone who spent many of my time as a young person preoccupied with death and even in college, I really wanted to spend time thinking about what happens after. And I think I think the poem speaks a lot to life and speaks a lot to the people that actually like loved me and cared about me and saw me. And it was a very like deep practice to think about how these people loved me.
And so your brother that you mentioned, Wayne, do you and your brother still talk now?
No, not really. Like unless someone is sick, dead, or like my niece is in trouble or needs help, we don't really talk.
Is it in connection with your trans identity?
I think, I mean, what is it in connection to our trans identity too? It feels like
Right.
um my brother and I show up as two completely different men in this world. And I always thought of myself as like the other side of his Black masculinity. We're two different Black men, and it's so stark. Like, it's visibly stark because my partner met him, which none of my partners have ever met him. But my partner right now met him and was like, wow, it's like two ends of the spectrum. And I'm very proud of the Black man I am, and like how safe I was. And for a huge part of my life, my brother wasn't a safe person or an understanding person, or a deeply empathetic person. And I choose as much as I can to be like a generous, compassionate, apologetic, humble Black man. And the way I think about it, the older we get, our siblings, we need to start thinking about them as friends. Are you someone I will be friends with? Are you someone I will trust people in my life with? Are you someone I would like, I don't know, have a beer with or go get some tea with? And I think when you get to a certain age, all our younger listeners, start thinking about your cousins, your siblings, people like that. And that's the game changer. Because then you really know who's putting energy into me, who do I want to put energy in. And like, you should surround your people with like yourself and your people with like people trying to get right with themselves, you know?
You literally answered the question I had in my mind, because I was going to ask you, is there space for reconciliation? And that just answered it, really. No, sometimes you have to meet people where they are, and some people not going to move past who they are. And that's just it. And you have to come to an understanding and then put them in the proper place, right? And protect your own mental health and your own stability and all of that. And if they have to be in that friend box and you don't talk to them only on holidays and when something is going wrong or at a funeral, then that's just how it is, right? And I've had to do that same thing in my life, and I had to come to peace with it, right? That those folks that I knew when I was 9 and 10 are not the folks who they are now that we 38, 30, 40, 41, 42. I'm 43, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they are not, they didn't grow up to be those people that I grew up to be. They were not in the same place. So I got to leave them where they at. And that's just it, right? And so that's very hard to do, especially when you're a younger person. But as you get older, that shit becomes easier and easier. And my friend list gets shorter and shorter. And so, yeah. The new Visibility Equals Possibility merch is now here. If you've been a listener of the show for a while, you know that here on Dem Bois Podcast, we believe that visibility equals possibility. And I say it all the time. Now we're introducing a groundbreaking collaboration crafted by Emilio. Emilio was featured on Dem Bois Podcast episode 37. So if you don't know his story or his journey, be sure to go back and listen to episode 37, right? But this isn't just merch. It's a movement. We're empowering trans men of color with creative freedom to design their interpretation of what visibility equals possibility means to them. Think of it like major brands collaborating with athletes and musicians, right? But this time, it's our community taking the center stage. It's great to have trans men of color designing products that represents their community, my community, your community, and that folks feel proud to put on. So be sure to go to the website and check it out. Our website is dembois.org. That's DEMBOIS.org. Every purchase goes to support our vital programs. Okay, so thank you so much for reading that one. So I know there was another one that you wanted to read, and so go ahead and go ahead with that one.
My mom may read my poems and not know how to be proud of me. If doubling down was a person, I'd like you to meet my mom. She is stubborn, doesn't rest, runs on a wheel accelerating out of her body. Her hands smell like thyme, cold leather, onions, and garlic, the soil of where she comes from. I don't know if she knows where home is anymore. She never said much about how she got here, who she was before she changed her name to Mom, who I was with when the news said Aaliyah died in the plane crash, then Left Eye in a car crash, next to in the New York sky when the towers collapsed, and I asked her if the captain would kill us. Her middle baby hiding herself away, trying to fill this hollow shape who watched her youngest baby's urine fill the toilet black, who put me on a bus to Maine because I asked her for adventure, watched Emerald Lagasse bam, 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 didn't laugh when I said I wanted to become a chef, ate every omelet I made custom to order, baked every delicious thing with, never questioned how I made a cave out of the closet corner and read every escaping book, called me intelligent and inquisitive, told me I asked too many questions. I still ask too many questions, heard her when she said she was depressed. Every pain sigh with age, reject the brainstorm of ways she can take better care, like therapy, like moving her body, like working for something other than labor, stop sleeping with the news on. I watched my mom become a cake decorator, learn to drive a car, say enough to every awful man, eat less so we can have more, get a high school diploma, be an imperfect person, sit alone in the living room, listen to Shania Twain, the soundtrack to Grease, the Bee Gees, Celine Dion, asking for my hand in front of the audience of Fish Tank Rainbow, smiling louder than a church bell, dance with your mother, every recorded Oliver play, where you taught me about the history of our country, of art and pantomime. In high school, she missed every play and choir concert, missed my solo and my trio singing Boys to Men with a white boy. We don't talk about that. She had to work, or the girls needed care, or that private school made her feel small, those people who made me feel small, or like in the Titanic, maybe there really wasn't enough room for the both of us lost at sea. And maybe my mother, maybe she chose me. Mom, I always wanted to be where you were, where you came from. Barris Hammond in the car. Remember the songs that used to make you rock away. Those were the days when love used to reign. We danced all night to the songs they played. Weekend will come again. Do it just the same.
Thank you for sharing that. You want to
Thank you.
tell folks it's beautiful. Like it makes me emotional reading it because these ideas of what we think our mothers are supposed to be or and in comparison to who they really are and who they turned out to be, right? And then in return who we are because of that, right? We're the residuals of who our mothers are and how they raised us. And so I really want to thank you for sharing that and just to ask you, like, how does that feel to read that poem? Has your mother read it already?
My mom hasn't read the poem. She'll probably read the poem when it's in book form. So, and in September, she about to be rocked. But I still can't get through the poem without tearing up. And it was important for me to write this poem in my book coming out in September because, and I'm not saying the title not to be cryptic, but because I haven't finalized the title. I didn't want people who read the book to, I think it's easy in literature to have like a one-dimensional view about someone. And like my mother is both complicated and kind. And our parents, for many of us, not all of us, our parents are both those things. They're both, sometimes they have done some fucked up, violent, horrible shit to us. And I saw my mom learn how to drive a car. She was dependent on men her whole life, violent men my whole life. And I watched her say no. And that's like some real shit. And I wanted people to know, like, this is someone who came to a country and never graduated high school. And I saw my mom get a diploma. You know, my mom taught me how to cook. I know grown ass men who don't know how to cook or fold their clothes or iron their shit or like clean a bathroom. Don't even get me started on grown men's bathrooms. Like, I think my mom was a complicated and kind of shitty parent for a period of time. And I think in other ways, she was a great parent.
To hear you say all of that, and in comparison to how I feel about my own mother, right? Because it was a rough ride, and I've seen my mother get physically abused by her ex-husband, and I saw my mother fight back, and she said enough is enough, right? As in that moment of like your mom, like, no, I'm gonna drive because I don't want to depend on you. And the word that circles back is grace, right? We're offering grace to our parents and knowing that they went through some shit. and I'm all right. I mean, I guess I'm all right. I'm a little tarnished, right? But that's what therapy is for. And would you say
Yeah.
that you are all right?
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm good. And that's what therapy is for, my dude.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank God, thank God we arrived here to say things and teach lessons we know are true.
Absolutely. And so that one day we can become elders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. And so
Thank you.
Yeah. And so this is a part of the show where I love to ask my guests random ask questions. And not questions, just one question, right? So I have a list of 67 questions. My list is forever growing. And so I just want you to pick a number between 1 and 67, and I'll read you that question. But the caveat to that is I want you to take one and then leave one. So you answer one question, but then leave a question for a future guest to answer.
22.
Oh, number 22 says, name 4 famous people, dead or alive, who you would invite over for the perfect dinner party. You looking like you got about 6 or 8.
I don't know. I'm like 4 people. Harriet Tubman. I think that would be crazy. I think that would be nuts. Harriet Tubman, Gloria Anzaldúa, Andrea Gibson, and you know what, Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, damn, I miss him.
I was thinking about him today. I was really thinking about him today. So I'd be curious. Some scholars, some poets.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you cook?
Oxtail.
Can I come?
Yeah. I'd make oxtail. Yeah. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, I love oxtail.
But Harriet Tubman, I'm like, show up with the gun, girl. Let's
get some shit done. Yes. I love it. So I want you to
leave.
And
a question to leave people with.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 karaoke songs? It could be a political question. But your top 3 karaoke songs.
Wow.
If you were on a stage today.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's yeah. How can it be a political question?
Because I don't know, some people always have to do a ballad. I know I have this one friend who always has to do this one, I think it's the Celine Dion ballad. People have all these karaoke rules that I didn't even know existed until I got into karaoke last year. So I don't know. Some person might come to you with mathematics and have a whole equation.
I'm interested to know how this question will be answered. I didn't even know there was rules to karaoke. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a whole lifestyle. Yeah, I guess. Wow. Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
Wow. I'm shy, so me and karaoke wouldn't get along unless I had a couple of drinks. Otherwise, I want to look and sit and watch you sing horribly. I can't do it. Not to say you sing horribly, but whoever's up there. Yeah.